August 26, 1346. On a rain-soaked field near the village of Crecy in France, 9,000 weary English soldiers braced themselves against 30,000 French troops, including 12,000 of Europe's most elite knights. The French, confident in their numbers and heavy cavalry, see victory as certain, with noble lords vying to claim the glory of slaying the English king. 4 hours later, the battlefield tells a different story. Over 1,500 French nobles lie dead, princes, dukes and kings among them. English losses? Only 40 men. In one afternoon, 5 centuries of armoured dominance collapsed, undone by commoners wielding wood and string. This was the Battle of Crécy, the day medieval warfare died in the mud. The moment when the idea of nobility through combat was shattered by peasant archers, marking the true beginning of the 100 Years' War and a revolution in military tactics. Edward III of England had landed in Normandy weeks earlier with 15,000 men, pressing his claim to the French throne. His forces devastated northern France in a campaign of legalized plunder, exposing the French king's inability to protect his people. As the English retreated toward Calais, with their exhausted army now reduced to 9,000, the French finally caught them. Philip VI of France assembled the mightiest army Christendom had seen, 30,000 to 35,000 men, including 12,000 heavily armoured knights from across Europe. This was no ordinary army. It was a gathering of the continent's warrior elite, united by one goal: English blood. But the English held a secret weapon: 5,000 Welsh and English longbowmen. These peasants and criminals had trained rigorously by law, perfecting a simple but deadly weapon: a 6-foot yew-stave capable of firing 12 arrows per minute, striking targets over 250 yards away. Positioned on high ground, Edward divided his forces into 3 lines with archers forming a deadly fy. In a bold move, he ordered his knights to dismount and fight on foot, breaking centuries of mounted knight tradition. It was a shock to his men, but a stroke of tactical brilliance. Meanwhile, the French nobility's arrogance turned their army into chaos. Ignoring orders to wait for morning, impatient knights surged forward in a disorderly charge, driven by vanity rather than strategy. The Genoese crossbowmen, hampered by wet strings and lacking protective pavises, were decimated by the English longbows. French knights then shockingly slaughtered their own mercenaries in panic. Following this, 12,000 mounted knights charged uphill into a hailstorm of arrows and deadly terrain traps. Arrows targeted horses' eyes, joints, and other vulnerable spots, halting charges and creating deadly bottlenecks. The terrain and English defences caused knights to fall helplessly into mud and pits. Even when arrows failed to penetrate armour, the impact was brutal, rattling men inside like dice. French knights, in panic, trampled their own men, while Genoese crossbowmen hired to support them were slaughtered by their own commanders. The chaos was absolute, noble against commoner, order collapsing into carnage. For weeks after, crows feasted so heavily on noble flesh they could barely fly. Amidst the carnage, the blind King John of Bohemia refused to flee. Guided by his knights, he charged into the English lines, sword in hand, striking blindly before falling alongside his men. His courage inspired Edward's son, the Black Prince, who adopted his emblem and motto. 16 desperate charges drained the French nobility. Philip VI was wounded and forced to retreat, leaving the sacred battle banner abandoned. By dawn, over 1,500 nobles lay dead. The English lost only 40 men. The battlefield was littered with the fallen, their armor looted or melted down. Crecy marked the end of chivalrous warfare. The dominance of mounted knights was shattered by disciplined archers and tactics. It challenged the divine right of nobility and transformed the nature of war forever. Though the longbow would later be replaced by gunpowder weapons, its impact was profound. The blind king's doomed charge became a symbol of a dying age, where valor gave way to survival and innovation triumphed over tradition. The muddy fields of Crecy witnessed the fall of medieval warfare and the birth of modern combat. One afternoon changed everything.